The girl had always lived in a small, tired-looking neighborhood at the edge of town. The streets were uneven, the houses were close together, and most people there worked long hours just to keep up with rent. She lived with her mother in a tiny home that creaked when the wind blew, but they tried not to complain. Life had never been smooth for them, yet they pushed forward because they were used to doing things the hard way. After school each day, she walked straight to the animal shelter. It wasn't fancy, not even close. A patched roof covered the main room, and there was always the faint smell of old wood and cleaning soap. Someone had painted the walls a faded yellow years ago, and the color had peeled in places like a cracked smile. But she loved the shelter more than any place in town. It was where abandoned dogs found warmth, where frightened cats hid under blankets until they felt brave again, and where she felt useful in a world that didn't care much about people like her. The workers at the shelter were a small, group-tired adults who had other jobs in the daytime. She was the only young helper, and she did more than most. She fed the dogs, cleaned the kennels, played with the animals that were too scared to come out on their own, and stayed late when one of them was sick. It didn't matter if her shoes got muddy or if she reached home after dark. As long as the animals were calm, she felt calm too. One afternoon, the shelter buzzed with a strange kind of energy. People whispered and hurried around as if something big was about to happen. She kept cleaning the bowls and didn't pay much attention until one of the older workers rushed toward her and whispered, "He's here." She frowned. Who? The millionaire? A millionaire? In their shelter. It didn't make sense. Rich people didn't come there. They made donations online or through fancy events, not by showing up in person. Before she could ask any more questions, 2 black cars pulled into the front lot. First stepped out a serious-looking assistant in a dark suit. He scanned the area like someone checking for danger, though the only real threat in the shelter was a friendly dog who sometimes jumped too high. Then the man himself stepped out. He looked exactly like someone from a magazine cover clean haircut. It's a white shirt, expensive watch, and shoes that had never touched dirt in their life. He didn't smile. He just observed everything around him with sharp eyes, as if he was trying to understand why a place like this existed. The workers hurried forward to greet him, their voices shaky with respect. Cameras clicked from the assistant's phone, probably for some company report or a donation photo. The girl stayed where she was, holding a bowl, not really impressed. She saw powerful businessmen on the news sometimes, standing next to children or pets for publicity. This felt no different. He eventually noticed her. She stood there in simple clothes, her hair tied back loosely, a little dirt on her hands from cleaning a cage. She didn't try to look busy or important. She just kept doing her work. The millionaire walked toward her with the assistant following closely. The other worker stepped out of the way like someone important was passing. The girl wasn't intimidated. She was more worried about the puppy whining behind her. "You work here?" he asked. His voice was smooth, practiced, the kind people used during company speeches. She nodded. After school, he looked around. "This place. You help run it?" She shrugged a little. "I help where I can. The animals need someone." There was no drama in her voice, no attempt to impress him. She spoke like someone who knew what mattered and didn't waste time dressing it up. He studied her for a moment. Most people treated him carefully, choosing their words, trying to impress him. She didn't. That alone caught his attention. "Do you like working here?" he asked. "It's not about liking," she said. "They need help, so I help. It's simple." The assistant frowned as if she had said something inappropriate. The millionaire didn't seem offended. Instead, he tilted his head slightly, curious. "You're not excited to meet me?" he said, not arrogantly, but almost surprised. She wiped her hands on her shirt. "I don't know you. I only know you're rich. That doesn't tell me anything about what kind of person you are." The assistant stepped forward. "Young lady," the millionaire raised his hand a little to quiet him, his eyes still on her. People didn't talk to him like that. Not rudely, just honestly. He wasn't used to honesty without fear behind it. He watched her open a kennel door and gently lift a scared dog into her arms. The way she moved softened something in his expression. She didn't rush, didn't struggle, didn't seem bothered by the dog's shaking body. She simply whispered something calming and held the animal close. He looked around at the shelter again, this time not like an outsider. His gaze was slower, thoughtful. Maybe for the first time, he noticed the broken fence, the old equipment, the shelters made of scrap wood and blankets. He had seen the place earlier, but he hadn't seen it. His assistant began explaining some donation plan, new supplies, a check for monthly expenses, maybe even funding for repairs. The worker smiled politely. These things mattered a lot, but the girl didn't pay much attention. Money helped, yes, but she had learned that money could not solve everything. People needed to care first. The millionaire stepped inside the dog yard with her. His polished shoes immediately sank slightly into the ground. He looked uncomfortable. "You don't come to places like this often, do you?" she asked. "Not really," he admitted. "So why now?" He hesitated. "My company supports animal welfare programs. I thought it would be good to visit one in person." She didn't smile or flatter him. Instead, she kneeling down to scratch behind the ears of a dog missing part of its tail. "Animals don't care about titles," she said. "They care about how you treat them." He watched her silently. Something about her confidence, her simplicity, made him feel strangely unsettled, not in a bad way, but like he had stepped into a part of life he had forgotten existed. A small dog suddenly brushed against his leg. He stiffened. The girl noticed. "He likes you," she said. "He's shedding on my pants." "They don't know the difference between expensive suits and cheap ones," she said with a small smile. He glanced at her again. The way she talked, gently teasing, honest without trying to prove anything, was unlike anything he usually heard. As the afternoon passed, he followed her through the shelter, watching her feed puppies, clean water bowls, and comfort an older dog that refused to leave its corner. She never complained. She never paused to see who was watching. She simply cared. He found himself asking questions he never asked anyone. "Do you ever get tired? Do you ever feel like the work is too hard? Why do you do all this?" She answered every question in the simplest way. Tired or not, they need someone here. Hard things still have to be done, because someone has to show them kindness. It was strange. He had met thousands of people in his life, and yet none had ever given such plain, strong answers. No big speeches. No complicated explanations. Just truth. As the sun started to set, the millionaire stood outside the shelter, staring at the rows of kennels. Something inside him, something buried under years of meetings, wealth, cold offices, and polished images, shifted slightly. He didn't know what it meant yet, but he felt it. Before leaving, he turned to her one more time. "You're different," he said quietly. "You don't talk like other people." She looked at him with innocent confusion. "I just say what I see." He didn't have a reply. For a moment, he simply watched her tying up a broken fence panel with rope. She wasn't looking at him. She wasn't worried about impressing anyone. She was just doing what needed to be done. He stepped back toward his car. The assistant opened the door for him, but he didn't get in right away. He kept watching the girl through the fading light, a girl who had nothing, yet somehow had something he'd never been able to buy. When he finally entered the car, the assistant said, "Sir, should we schedule another visit?" The millionaire didn't answer immediately. He just stared through the window at the small shelter, the girl still working inside it, and felt something unexpected. "I think," he said slowly, "we should come back." The cars pulled out of the lot, their engines echoing against the quiet street. The girl didn't notice. She was busy placing a warm blanket inside a doghouse, humming softly under her breath. She had no idea that her life and the millionaire's life had just begun to change in ways neither of them could imagine yet. And she didn't know that this simple meeting, in this simple shelter, would lead to a moment that would shock everyone. The millionaire did not stay away long. Only 2 days after his first visit, his car rolled back into the shelter's parking lot. The workers recognized the vehicle instantly and began whispering again, confused about why such a wealthy man would return to a small, rundown place like theirs. The girl didn't react much when she saw him through the window. She was busy changing the water bowls and trying to calm a large dog that barked whenever strangers appeared. He stepped out of the car. with less stiffness this time. His assistant followed him, holding a clipboard filled with notes. The millionaire didn't appear as guarded as before. His eyes moved slowly around the shelter, not with judgment, but with a kind of curiosity that made him look more human than before. When he spotted the girl inside, he walked toward her. She didn't drop what she was doing. She simply nodded at him and kept working. "You came back," she said, as if he had returned to pick up something he forgot. He let out a small breath. "Yes, I wanted to see the place again." "Most rich people don't come back," she said honestly. He didn't deny it. "Maybe I'm trying something different." She didn't tease him, but she didn't flatter him either. She just opened another cage and let a shy puppy stretch its legs. The millionaire stepped inside the play area. As soon as he did, a small group of dogs ran toward him. He stiffened again, clearly not used to being approached without warning. The girl noticed and held back a smile. "They're just saying hello," she said. "One of them tried to bite my shoelace," he answered. "That's how he says hello." Not knowing whether to bend down or move away, after a moment, he gave in and slowly crouched next to the dog. The dog sniffed him, then licked his hand. He flinched, but he didn't pull away. "You're getting better," the girl said. "I didn't realize helping animals required bravery." "It's not bravery," she replied. "It's patience." He watched her carefully, trying to understand her world. She moved naturally around the animals, never nervous, never unsure. Everything she did with quiet confidence. After a few minutes, he stood up and wiped his hands on his trousers lightly, almost politely, like he didn't want to show discomfort. "Can I watch how you work?" he asked. "Why?" He hesitated. "I want to understand what you meant last time. About kindness," she asked. He nodded. She shrugged. "If you want to watch, then watch." He followed her around as she moved from one part of the shelter to the other. She explained the simple things: why some dogs needed soft voices, why some needed space, why some barked so loudly but were still harmless. He listened closely, not pretending to know more than he did. At one point, she handed him a broom. "Here," she said. "You can help by sweeping this area." He stared at the broom as if she had given him a complicated machine. "I've never done this at a shelter before," he admitted. "It's just a broom," she said. "It doesn't know the difference between rich and poor hands." He let out a small, embarrassed laugh. Then he began sweeping, awkward at first, but he kept going. The assistant looked horrified, perhaps convinced the world would crumble if his boss held a cleaning tool. The girl ignored the assistant completely. After a while, the millionaire said, "You're not impressed by anything I do, are you?" She shook her head. "I'm impressed by people who stay kind when no one is watching. Anyone can look good in a photo." He paused his sweeping. Her words hit him harder than he expected. In his world, attention and applause came easily. But this girl measured people differently. She didn't care about titles, wealth, or polished speeches. She cared about actions. They finished sweeping together. The girl filled a bucket of warm water and handed him a cloth without asking if he wanted it. "What do I do with this?" he asked. "Wipe down the kennel doors? They get dusty." He nodded and followed her instruction. At one point, he crouched down to reach a lower corner, and a dog inside the kennel bumped his nose gently against the bars. He smiled without realizing he was smiling. "You're learning," the girl said from behind him. "You say that like I'm one of the animals." "Everyone is learning something," she replied simply. They worked quietly for a while. The millionaire wasn't used to silence. He was used to phones ringing, people shouting numbers, deals being made, screens buzzing with messages. But the shelter's silence wasn't empty. It was warm, filled with soft dog noises, gentle movements, and the rhythm of simple tasks. After about an hour, he finally asked the question that had been bothering him since he arrived. "Why do you work so hard here? You're young. Most people your age are out having fun or doing things for themselves." She took her time answering. She finished replacing a worn-out blanket and stood up. "I don't really think about what other people do," she said. "The animals need help. And I feel peaceful here, even when it's loud, even when it's messy. It makes sense to me. More than school, More than the future you want? She thought about that. Maybe the future I want is just a simple one, she said. Not everything has to be big. He looked at her with genuine wonder. His whole life had been built on chasing big things, big companies, big expectations. Her world was small, but it didn't feel weak. It felt steady. The assistant interrupted with a list of things they needed to review. The millionaire held up a hand, signaling him to wait. He kept his eyes on the girl. You said last time that real compassion comes from actions, not money. And you said something about doing hard things, even when they're uncomfortable. She nodded. He hesitated again, then asked, Is that why you challenged me to sleep in the doghouse? She nearly dropped the food scoop she was holding. That was a joke, she said quickly. I didn't think you'd take it seriously, but you said it for a reason. She gave a small sigh. It's not about the doghouse. It's about meaning. You learn more from being uncomfortable than from watching someone else struggle. He took in her words slowly. Do you really think I would do it? He asked. I don't know, she said. People say a lot of things, but action tells the truth. He looked down at the ground. It wasn't anger in his expression, it was thought. Deep thought. The kind that cracks something open inside a person. They continued working until the sky dimmed into soft evening light. The millionaire stayed longer than anyone expected. When he finally got ready to leave, he stood near the gate and looked back at the shelter. You've made me think about things I haven't thought about in years, he said quietly. That's good, she said. Thinking is the first step. He nodded. And what's the second? Doing, she replied. He didn't answer. He simply looked at her, then at the dogs resting inside their kennels. Something stirred inside him, something unfamiliar, uncomfortable, but strangely freeing. When he finally walked to his car, the assistant whispered urgently, Sir. Don't tell me you're considering that ridiculous challenge she mentioned. The millionaire didn't reply. His silence was enough to make the assistant panic inside as the car drove away. Dust rising behind it, the girl returned to her chores, unaware that she had planted a seed in the mind of a man who had spent years living far away from simple truths. She had no idea. He would soon return, not as a visitor, not as a donor, but as someone ready to test himself in a way he had never done before. And she had no idea that her simple challenge made without planning, without expectation, was about to become the turning point of everything that followed. It was early the next morning when the sun rose slowly over the quiet town, casting a soft golden light across the streets. The girl woke up in the small room she had been staying in, still feeling the weight of everything that had happened the day before. She sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes, and for a moment she wondered if the strange events of yesterday were only a dream. But the memory of the millionaire's calm voice, the shock on everyone's faces, and the way he had agreed to sleep in the doghouse came rushing back. She took a long breath and stood by the window, watching people move about their day. She felt nervous, not because she regretted what she had said to him, but because she wasn't sure what he would do next. He didn't act like other wealthy people she had met. He didn't show anger. He didn't threaten her. He didn't even laugh at her. Instead, he looked at her with a strange mix of curiosity and something she couldn't name. As she stepped outside to get some fresh air, she noticed the small crowd that had gathered outside the property. They were talking quietly, waiting, whispering about the millionaire who supposedly slept in a doghouse. Some believed it, some didn't. Some were only there for the gossip. But she didn't want any of this attention. She saw him from a distance. He was standing near the old broken fence, speaking politely with a few townspeople. He looked tired, but not upset. When he saw her, he gave a small nod. It's almost like he had been waiting for her. Good morning, he said simply. She walked toward him slowly. Did you really stay there? She asked, feeling a little embarrassed now that the crowd was watching. He nodded again. Yes, and it gives me a lot to think about. The people around them exchanged surprised looks. No one expected a man like him to even consider such a thing, let alone actually do it. But the girl tried not to think about them. She focused only on him. He asked if they could talk privately, away from the noise. She agreed, and they walked a short distance to a quiet part of the yard. The wind was gentle, brushing against the overgrown grass. She waited for him to speak. You were right yesterday, he began. You told me something I needed to hear. But I want to understand more. Why did you say those words? Why did you push me in that moment? She lowered her head, thinking carefully. She didn't want to sound rude. Because I was tired of people coming here telling me how to live or what I should do. Many made promises they never kept. I've been struggling for a long time and I'm not proud of it. But I'm trying. And when you came here yesterday, I thought you were just another rich man trying to act like he understood. He didn't interrupt. He listened quietly, which surprised her. I said those things because I wanted you to stop pretending, she said. But you didn't pretend at all. You actually did what I said. And now I don't know what to think. He smiled in a gentle way, not offended. Sometimes people like me need someone to speak honestly. I'm always surrounded by people who agree with me, even when I'm wrong. When you're wealthy, people stop telling you the truth because they don't want to disappoint you. But you didn't care about any of that. She felt her cheeks warm in embarrassment. She didn't mean to give him life lessons. She was just angry and frustrated yesterday, he continued. Last night gave me a better understanding. I realized how often I overlook small things in life. I've been too focused on business, work, and plans. I forgot what it feels like to be uncomfortable. I forgot what it means to have nothing. And that's something I don't want to forget anymore. The girl didn't know what to say. She studied his face for any sign of sarcasm or hidden insult, but found none. He was genuinely speaking from his heart. What are you going to do now? She asked. He looked around the yard, his eyes scanning the broken items, the cracked walls, and the small patches of weeds that had taken control. I want to help, he said softly. But I want to help in a way that respects you. Her eyes widened. She took a step back. I didn't ask for help. I know, he said calmly. And I won't force anything. But I saw how you live. I saw the effort you're putting in. You're doing everything you can, but sometimes life is just too heavy for one person. She felt a lump in her throat. For years, she had carried her burdens alone. She never asked anyone for anything. But now she wondered if maybe she had been pushing help away because she didn't want to appear weak before she could speak. One of the townspeople approached them. Is it true? The man asked the millionaire. You really slept in that doghouse? The millionaire simply nodded. The man shook his head in disbelief. People like you don't do things like that. The millionaire smiled. Maybe people like me should do it more often? The girl saw how the crowd reacted. Some people smiled, some were amazed, and a few looked confused. She never wanted attention, and this situation was bringing more than she ever expected. She whispered to him, I don't want people talking about us. He nodded. Then let's go somewhere quieter. They walked across the property to the far end, where an old tree stood. Its branches stretched wide, offering shade. They sat beneath it. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence felt peaceful. Birds chirped nearby, and the warm sunlight filtered through the leaves. He finally said, I didn't come here to cause chaos. I came because I heard about your situation. I wanted to understand it myself, not from reports or documents. She looked at him curiously. But why me? There are so many people struggling. Because someone who works for me told me about you, he explained. They said you were strong, independent, and honest. I wanted to meet the person who hadn't given up despite everything. She felt overwhelmed. No one ever described her that way. Most people simply saw her as poor or unlucky. I'm not as strong as people think, she whispered. Strength isn't about never falling, he replied. It's about getting back up each time you fall. And you've done that again and again. She felt something shift inside her. It was not pride, nor was it relief. It was something deeper, something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. He leaned back against the tree and let out a soft laugh. You know, last night I realized how much I've taken my life for granted. I've never had to worry about a place to sleep. Never had to worry about missing meals. I've never had to wonder if I could pay for anything. But you face those fears every day, and still you take care of everything around you.
Ow.
She shook her head lightly. I don't do it because I'm brave. I do it because there's no one else to do it. That's what makes it brave, he said. His words touched her in a way she didn't expect. For the next hour, they talked about life, struggle, and dreams. She told him stories about her childhood, about the small moments that shaped her, and about the people she had lost along the way. He listened to every word. He didn't offer solutions. He didn't shower her with pity. He simply listened, and for the first time in years, she felt like her voice mattered. As the sun climbed higher, the air grew warmer. She stood up and said she needed to get back inside to finish her chores. Before she could walk away, he gently stopped her. "Can I help?" he asked. She stared at him, surprised. "What? I want to help you today," he said. "Whatever you need to do, let me join you." She hesitated. It felt strange to imagine someone like him doing simple chores. But she saw sincerity in his eyes. He wasn't asking because he wanted attention or praise. He genuinely wanted to understand her life. So she agreed. For the rest of the day, they worked together. She showed him how to clean the yard, repair small things, and organize items that had been untouched for months. She tried to do the heavier tasks so he wouldn't struggle, but he insisted on sharing the load. The people in town watched in disbelief. Some whispered, some smiled, and some still couldn't understand why a millionaire was helping a girl like her. But she knew why. It was because he saw what others didn't. He saw her effort, her heart, and her strength. By evening, they were both tired. The yard looked better than it had in months. She felt proud of what they accomplished. He smiled at her and said, "Today meant a lot to me." She nodded. "It meant a lot to me too." As they stood there in the fading light, watching the sun dip behind the horizon, she realized that something had changed between them. They were no longer just a poor girl and a wealthy man. They were two people who understood each other in a way neither expected, and deep inside, she knew this was only the beginning of a much bigger story. He didn't say anything at first. He just stood there on the balcony looking at the garden where she was working. She was sweeping the leaves with slow, careful movements, like someone who didn't want to disturb even the smallest thing around her. It had been several weeks since she first arrived at the mansion, and during that time, everything about her had surprised him in ways he didn't expect. When she had first asked to sleep in the doghouse, he thought she might be someone who was just looking for attention, or someone trying to take advantage of him. But he had been completely wrong. She had done the opposite. She never asked for anything. She never complained. She never even stepped inside the main house unless someone invited her. Instead, she tried to be useful, tried to give back in small ways, even though nobody had asked her to. The more he watched her work, the more he realized that she had changed the atmosphere of the place. The staff used to walk around quietly, finishing tasks without much conversation. Now they talked to her, laughed with her, and even saved extra snacks from the kitchen just to pass to her on breaks. But she always thanked them softly, ate only a little, and saved the rest for later. He knew she did that because she didn't want to waste anything. One day, he walked outside to talk to her directly. She quickly stood up straight, wiping her hands on her jeans as if trying not to dirty anything around her. "You don't have to rush every time you see me," he said gently. "I'm just trying to stay respectful," she replied. "I don't want to be a problem here." "You've never been a problem," he said. "Not even once." She didn't answer him. Instead, she looked down, quietly embarrassed. He noticed that she was always like this when someone complimented her. She didn't seem to know how to accept kind words. It was as if kindness was something she didn't believe she deserved. He asked her to walk with him along the garden path. They walked slowly, side by side, with the afternoon sun turning the sky warm. The wind was soft, and it carried the smell of fresh grass. The dogs ran around the yard, chasing each other, occasionally circling back to her because they had grown attached to her too. They followed her everywhere. It didn't matter if she was cleaning, organizing tools, or folding blankets for them. They just liked being around her. "You work harder than anyone here," he said, breaking the quiet. "I work because you helped me when nobody else would," she said. "I don't want to disappoint you." "You've done the opposite," he told her. "You've impressed everyone." She looked at him with a small, unsure smile. She still didn't fully believe it, but she appreciated the words. He wanted to say more, but he wasn't sure how to continue. He had been thinking for days about what he wanted to offer her, He didn't want to make her feel small or like she owed him anything. He didn't want her to think he was doing something out of pity. No, that wasn't it at all. He wanted to help her because he genuinely believed she had potential. He saw it in the way she approached every task with care. He saw it in the way she listened to directions and immediately understood them. And most of all, he saw it in the way she treated people with patience, with respect, and with a quiet strength that came from surviving things she never talked about. He knew she had faced hardship, but she never used it as an excuse. She only used it as a reason to keep going. Later that evening, he called her to the small office in the guest house. She walked in nervously, thinking she had done something wrong. She stood near the door and didn't move until he nodded for her to come closer. "You've been helping around the property for weeks," he said, "and you've done more than anyone expected." "I'm just grateful to be here," she said softly. "I know," he replied. "But I want to talk to you about something bigger." She blinked, unsure what that meant. He slid a folder across the desk. She didn't open it. She just stared at it, afraid to touch anything that might break. "I want to offer you a job," he said. She looked up quickly. "A job?" "A real one," he said. "Not just chores around the yard. I own several companies, and one of them needs someone dependable at the front desk. Someone who can stay calm under pressure. Someone who doesn't give up easily." Her mouth parted, but no words came out. "You'd be trained," he continued. "You'd earn a regular salary. It's more than enough to restart your life." She slowly sat down, her hands shaking. "Why? Why would you offer that to me?" "Because you deserve a chance," he said. "Because I see how you work and how you treat people. That's rare. And because you're capable of much more than sweeping leaves and feeding dogs." Her eyes filled with tears, and she looked away, embarrassed. She didn't want him to see her cry. "You don't have to decide right now," he said gently. "Take some time if you want," she said quickly. "I don't need time." She took a shaky breath. "I want it. I want the job," he nodded with a small smile. He knew she would say yes, not because she felt obligated, but because she wanted a real chance at life. The next day she woke up earlier than usual. She dressed neatly, braided her hair, and stood outside the main house waiting for him. He walked out to find her already prepared, standing with her back straight and her hands folded in front of her. "You don't start today," he said, amused. "Training begins next week." "Just wanted to show I'm serious," she said. "I already know you're serious," he replied. He arranged for one of his trusted employees to teach her everything she needed to know. From answering office calls to organizing schedules, she listened carefully to every instruction, writing notes in a small notebook she kept in her pocket. She asked questions only when she didn't understand something, but most of the time she learned quickly, surprising even the trainers. There was one moment when she almost gave up. She was learning how to use a computer system, and she kept pressing the wrong buttons. Her frustration built until her eyes began to water. She whispered, "Maybe I'm not smart enough for this." The trainer shook his head. "You're more than smart enough. You just need practice," he encouraged her until she tried again, and again, and again. Eventually she got it right. When the millionaire stopped by later and saw her typing confidently, he felt something warm in his chest. He didn't say anything, but he was proud of her. As the week went on, she became more confident. She still helped around the mansion after training, still swept and cleaned when she didn't need to, and still saved leftover food to make sure nothing went to waste. She didn't change who she was. That was what impressed him most. One afternoon, he visited the office building where she would work. The staff was excited to meet her because they had heard about the girl who once asked to sleep in a doghouse, but ended up impressing everyone with her quiet strength. They didn't treat her like someone from the street. They treated her like someone who had earned her place. She felt nervous at first, but the staff welcomed her warmly. They showed her where she would sit, how the phones worked, where the files were kept, and how to handle visitors. She paid attention to every detail, wanting to prove that she was worthy of their trust. That evening, she returned to the guest house. She sat on the bed and stared at her hands. They were still rough from all the hard work she had done over the years. For a long time, she believed she would always struggle, always fight just to survive. But now, for the first time, she felt like she was stepping into a life that didn't depend on luck or charity. It depended on her effort, her determination, and the belief someone had shown in her. The millionaire visited her later with a gentle knock on the door. "How was the first visit?" he asked. "It was good," she said, smiling. "Everyone was kind. I just hope I don't disappoint anyone." "You won't," he said. "I'm trying my best," she whispered. "I know you are," he said, "and that's all anyone can ask for." She hesitated, then said quietly, "Thank you for believing in me." "You made it easy," he replied. The next week, she officially started the job. She woke up early every morning, dressed neatly, and left the mansion with a sense of purpose she had never felt before. The first few days were challenging. She made mistakes, forgot small things, and sometimes felt overwhelmed. But every time she doubted herself, she remembered how far she had come. People at the office liked her. They noticed that she treated everyone with kindness, whether it was the CEO or the cleaning staff. She never acted like she was better than anyone. She never pretended to be someone she wasn't. That honesty made people trust her. Slowly, she built a routine. She learned to answer calls with confidence. She organized files so neatly that her coworkers joked she could find anything in 5 seconds. She even learned to handle small office problems without panicking. Every day she grew a little stronger, a little more confident. Back at the mansion, staff missed seeing her around as often. The dogs waited near the gate every afternoon, knowing she would return eventually. And when she did, they rushed to her, jumping around her legs in excitement. She laughed and hugged them one by one. The millionaire often watched from a distance, smiling at the scene. He never expected someone like her to enter his life. He never expected her presence to change the atmosphere of his home, his staff, and even himself. But she had done all of that simply by being who she was. One evening, he found her sitting on a bench in the garden, staring at the sky. She looked peaceful, but there was something thoughtful in her eyes. When he approached her, she looked up. "I was just thinking," she said softly. "About what?" He asked. "About how different my life is now," she said. "Sometimes I still can't believe it." "You earned it," he said. "Maybe," she whispered. "But sometimes I wonder why you decided to give me a chance." He sat beside her. "Because everyone deserves one. And because you were brave enough to ask for help. Most people aren't." She looked down at her hands again. "I didn't feel brave that night. I felt desperate." "Desperation can still lead to courage," he said. She didn't reply, but she understood. They sat quietly for a few moments, listening to the soft rustle of the leaves. The dogs lay near their feet, breathing softly. The garden lights glowed around them, casting gentle shadows. "You know," he said suddenly, "you're not the same person who came to the gate asking to sleep in a doghouse." "I know," she said. "I feel different. I feel safer. I feel like I have a future now." "You do?" he said. "This is just the beginning." She looked at him with gratitude in her eyes, the kind that didn't need words. She had no idea what was coming next, or how much her life would change again. She had no idea that soon the world outside would learn about her story in a way she'd never expected. But for now, she sat in the garden, feeling a peace she hadn't felt in years. And he sat beside her, knowing that helping her had changed him too. He didn't expect the story to spread. He didn't plan for it, didn't mention it to anyone outside his staff. Certainly didn't think people in the city would start talking. But sometimes life has a way of bringing hidden things into the open, even when no one seeks attention. One quiet morning, as he sat in his office reviewing some reports, his assistant walked in with a puzzled look. She held a tablet in her hand. "You should see this," she said, placing it on his desk. He looked at the screen. It showed a picture taken from outside his gate weeks earlier. It was the night she had arrived, standing in the cold, asking softly if she could sleep in the doghouse. Someone from a nearby house had seen the moment, snapped a photo, and shared it online with a short caption about a girl who had nowhere to go and a wealthy man who had unexpectedly helped her. The post had gone viral. Thousands of people were sharing it. adding their own thoughts, making guesses, and creating stories about the girl and the kind stranger. Some comments praised her humility. Some admired his generosity. Others spun their own dramatic versions, which he knew were exaggerated. He sighed and rubbed his forehead. He had always kept his personal life private, and she didn't like attention at all. She didn't even tell people at work about her past unless someone asked gently. He closed the tablet. Does she know? Not yet, the assistant said. She's at the front desk right now. She hasn't checked her phone, he thought for a moment. He didn't want her to find out suddenly and panic. She was just starting to feel secure in her new life. This kind of public attention might shake her confidence. He went to the main building where she worked. When he walked inside, she stood up immediately, as she always did when she saw him. Everything okay? She asked politely. We need to talk, he said. Do you have a moment? She nodded quickly and followed him to a small meeting room. She seemed nervous, often worried that she might have made a mistake. Even when she hadn't. He closed the door behind them. There's something I need to show you, he said. He handed her the tablet. She looked at the screen, confused. Her eyes focused on the photo. Her breath caught. Her hand trembled just a little. That's me, she whispered. Yes, he said softly. Her eyes moved to the caption, then to the number of comments, then to the thousands of shares. She didn't speak for several seconds. She just stared, frozen. I didn't know someone was watching me that night, she said finally. I know, he replied, and I'm sorry this happened without your consent. She shook her head. It's not your fault. I didn't expect the whole world to see something like this. He stepped closer, but not too close. He didn't want to make her feel trapped. If you're uncomfortable, he said, we can release a statement. We can ask people to stop sharing it. I can talk to a lawyer if necessary. No, she said quietly. It's okay. People are always going to talk about things they don't understand. But they didn't write anything cruel. She scrolled slowly. They're saying such kind things. They are, he said. She handed the tablet back. I just hope this doesn't affect my job. He smiled faintly. Your job isn't going anywhere. She let out a small breath of relief. The attention only grew over the next few days. News outlets wanted interviews. Some wanted to talk to her. Others wanted to talk to him. But neither of them accepted any request. They didn't want fame or public attention to take away the quiet life they were building. However, something unexpected happened because of that viral post. People began sending messages asking how they could help others like her. Some offered donations to shelters. Some shared their own stories of hardship and how one act of kindness changed their lives. Others sent messages of encouragement, saying how her courage inspired them. It wasn't about pity. It was about people feeling hope again. One evening after work, she sat on the mansion steps with the dogs lying around her feet. The sunset cast a soft orange glow across the yard. She looked calm, but her eyes held a deep thoughtfulness. He walked out and sat beside her. You've been quiet these last few days, he said. I've just been thinking, she replied. About what? About how my life used to be, she said, and how different it is now. I keep wondering why things changed. Why I met you. Why someone even took that picture. Why people reacted the way they did. He listened, letting her speak freely. When I was struggling, she continued, I always felt invisible. Like no one cared, no matter how hard I tried. But now, it feels like the world suddenly sees me. It's strange. And a little scary. You don't have to do anything you're not comfortable with, he told her. You don't owe anyone a story. I know, she said. But part of me feels like maybe something good can come from this. Not for me, but for others. There are so many people out there who live the way I did. If someone shows them kindness, even once, it can change everything. He looked at her with deep respect. You're thinking about helping others? She nodded slowly. I don't have money. I don't have much to give. But I have my story. And maybe sharing it could help someone out there feel less alone. He thought for a moment. If you want to share your story, I'll support you. But only if you want it. Not because the public demands it. She smiled softly. Thank you. A week later, she agreed to speak in a small video recorded privately in the mansion garden. It wasn't for fame. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't overly emotional. It was just her, sitting on a bench, speaking gently about her life, how she lost everything, how she survived, how she asked to sleep in a doghouse because she had no other choice, and how one act of kindness gave her a chance to rebuild her life. She didn't mention his name. She didn't talk about details that were too personal. She only shared enough to help people understand that life can change through compassion. When the video was posted, something unexpected happened again. People around the world began sharing their own stories in the comments. Stories of losing homes, jobs, families, confidence, or hope. They didn't share to seek pity. They shared because her honesty made them feel safe enough to speak. She read every comment slowly, sometimes with tears in her eyes. Not out of sadness, but out of recognition. She had lived many of those feelings. She understood the pain behind the words. The millionaire watched her reading the comments with a thoughtful expression. He realized something important that night. Helping her wasn't just about giving her shelter or a job. It was about helping her rediscover her voice, her strength, and her place in the world. Life at the office changed too. Coworkers treated her with even more respect, not because she was suddenly known online, but because they admired her strength. They admired how she showed up every day, worked hard, stayed humble, and treated everyone equally. One afternoon, the office manager approached her. "We have a new employee starting next week," the manager said. "Would you be willing to help train them? You've grown a lot, and you know the front desk better than anyone now." She was surprised. "Me? You want me to train someone?" "Yes," the manager replied. "You're calm, patient, and organized, and the new employee could really learn from you." Her heart swelled a little, not with pride, but with gratitude. She agreed immediately. The first day the new employee arrived, she approached them gently, showed them the system, explained everything step by step, and even taught them small tricks she had learned along the way. The new employee smiled and said, "You're really good at this." She felt something she hadn't felt in years, confident. Later that evening, when she returned to the mansion, she saw the millionaire waiting near the gate. "How was your day?" he asked. "I trained someone today," she said. "Almost glowing, I heard," he replied with a proud smile. "They said I did well. That doesn't surprise me." She laughed softly, something she didn't do often before all of this. She seemed lighter now, like a weight had finally lifted from her shoulders.